If anybody comes in here, I'll just turn the camera on them. Good. We're live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Do it live. That's us for tomorrow and today. Now, man. Stupid shit computer. Kill it and change this fucking computer.
Okay, I don't know what. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today.
That's tomorrow, and that's
okay, I don't know what. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
No, there is. We are going to do Sting, yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Right? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.
Sting is going to do. It's a video. Sting video.
What is
for credits?
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
I'll grab the ashtray off
5,
the
4,
table.
3.
Well, grab that ashtray.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live.
Fuck it.
Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today.
I'm Riley, and
Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and
the Conference on album. Take it away. Look how angry he is. Look how angry he is. So funny, man. Rampage Jackson, Quentin versus what's his name? Silva.
They don't want to touch gloves. That's a big question right there. Yeah.
No.
They don't want to touch gloves.
Wanderlei Silva.
Wanderlei Silva.
Chael Sonnen kicked his ass.
Are you ready, sir? You ready? Fight! The battle continues. Rampage quickly takes the center of the octagon. Rampage throws the right hand.
And Rampage smartly moved back right after he did that.
Smart.
His technical boxing skills have improved greatly over the last few years.
Inside leg kick by Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva would love to get that Muay Thai plum working. That's what was the beginning of the end, not once but twice for Rampage in the previous matchups. Combination, Rampage covers up. Yesterday at the weigh-in, some pushing, some shoving, some words.
Wanderlei appears very cautious, Mike. He's really feeling it out.
Rampage coming off the loss of his belt and the title to Forrest Griffin. He wants to get right back in the mix. Forrest and Rashad fight tonight for the light heavyweight title in our main event. What a jam-packed Ultimate 2008 jab by Rampage. Wanderlei holds those hands nice and high.
One thing that Rampage has said in the pre-fight is that he doesn't believe Wanderlei looks the same. He said he hasn't been looking good. He doesn't look like the same fighter he was in Pride. And if he really believes that...
Well, Joe, I'll tell you this. After that win in October of 04...
I'm dating my con. I'm like, fuck you. Alright. You got my sloppy seconds. Versus Wanderlei Silva. Yeah, awesome. It's out of a different weight class, man. Both in this guy.
Who wins this one, Mark Hunt?
I'm guessing Wanderlei by submission, otherwise Mark Hunt by knockout. But Wanderlei has a head that can't be knocked out.
Taking it easy.
He's
Tough easy.
Brazilian. Doors locked. Front doors locked.
Yep, all right. Open.
Vanderlei Silva was supposed to take on Kazushi Sakuraba for a fourth time tonight. Now, Sakuraba, during training, broke 2 ribs. He's on the sidelines. But guess what? Mark Hunt volunteered on very short notice to take the fight. He just recovered from right ankle injury, just started training a few days ago, but he decided to volunteer because he wants to become an instant challenger for a championship in Pride, wants to show the entire world that Pride Fighting Championships is in his heart. Now, boss, Hunt outweighs Silva by some 70 pounds. Having said that, the axe murderer says he's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with the last-minute substitution.
Why am I not surprised? I mean, come on, Vanderlei Silva, that shows why he's such a great warrior. Okay, now, because think about it. He's going to face a K1 Grand Prix champion who outweighs him with 70 pounds, just like you said, is pretty much impossible to knock out, has great power in his striking, and his overall striking is just phenomenal. On top of that, he impressed me a lot with his natural instincts for mixed martial arts in his fight against Yoshida.
Mr. Bushido is yet to taste defeat in Pride and says Palmer is without a doubt his toughest opponent. This could be the biggest night of the kickboxing great's fighting career. Kazushi Sakuraba has walked into Mark Hunt, and the axe murderer boss said simply, bring it on.
Well, just goes to emphasize what I thought, and got to learn the ground game a lot more and get a lot fitter. That's about it.
What drives you to fight? What makes you want to fight?
To be honest, like, what drives you to city? I get paid. That's what I'm here about. I'm not gonna lie. I do this for a living.
Shut your bank account.
So money.
Do you like it though? I mean, do you get? There's got to be some other. Not. I mean, because you got to love your work. It beats working. I mean, you work, but it beats doing something you don't like. So do you enjoy fighting? I mean, is it? I mean,
I like fighting. Yeah.
what is it you like about it?
It's just I just like fighting.
Yeah. It's like
You
fighting.
get a rush out of it. I mean, were you?
It feels good. I mean.
Because you're gonna
Yeah, I mean, appreciate
make
people
it hard.
that cheating on.
From it.
You know. Yeah. Was I a bully? No, I wasn't actually.
Schwunker.
I mean,
Hey, this is Australia, gay TV. There's gonna be dancing, gonna be singing, gonna
when I'm
be
walking out into the ring.
schwunker.
I'm nervous up until I tune it, until I walk out into the ring, and then it's just I'm in that zone. It's a great feeling. It's a good feeling. Yeah. It's good when you're on the losing end of it. So it's good to win anyway. Well, I mean, I was the one getting beaten before he lost, so yeah. Any which way possible to win the fight. I mean, I think so. I mean, he's got to be improving somewhere. So yeah, I feel like I'm improving. Yeah. I mean, I'm dealing with the circumstances. With the when I fought with Dan Barry, he's heavy guys. I dealt with that best way possible. Yeah, I think I deal with the fights I get to have.
All right, that's all I need. Just have him talk to me about what he was thinking just before the fight happened, just as he was coming out, and what was going on in his locker room before.
Yes, I was very nervous because for me this was very important fight.
Afraid, he was afraid. What was he nervous about most?
It's because I don't mean I was not afraid. I was just nervous because 1 week before the fight, I was had an injury here in this part of my body, so yes, in the rib, and so that's why I was a little bit nervous.
Tell him to describe the first round and what he was feeling about it, how the first round went, what he felt about it.
Well, I think I was very good in the fight in the beginning of the first round, and I think we were doing a very good fight and standing. And but I think it was a little bit mistake of my part, and so he knocked me down, and that's why I think I had a little bit of trouble.
Does he feel? Or did it? Do you understand? Fire him up? Did it make him angry that Quentin was on his cell phone when the Brazilian national anthem was playing? Did he feel like he was disrespected?
Well, I think that at the time, at the beginning of the before the fight, I think he was very, very nervous and he was very worried about the fight. And so, but he wanted to show this. So that's why I think he was just doing that kind of thing. Yes, but I think he was very nervous, but he didn't want to show that.
Right. Okay. At the end of the first round, did he feel he was in any trouble just before the bell rang?
Yes, that's right. I think when he knocked me down, I was in a little bit of trouble, and he was I was on the bottom. But I think if the bell doesn't ring at that time, I think I could recover and could continue to fight.
During the intermission, between the rounds, the 2-minute break there, what was his corner telling him?
After the first round, I was very, very tired. So when I got to my corner, they just let me to rest and to relax and to breathe. And after, I think it was when it was in the end of the intermission, they just told me to go to attack and to go to a knockout.
In the second round, obviously, he got the knockout. At what point in the second round did he know that he was close to finishing the fight?
I think when was the second combination of the punches. I think at that time my punch hit him, and that's why I could go to the knees.
Was he surprised on the way that the fight ended and that Quentin flew out of the ring? I mean, did that surprise him that it was that vicious?
Yes, for sure. I was very surprised about that because I didn't know. I didn't even know that I could knock him out that way.
So he was surprised, yeah.
Então você estava surpreso, né?
Would he like to, would he like to fight Quentin again, or does he think that he's already proven himself against Quentin and he doesn't need to fight him again?
I think we can have another chance next year to fight again because I think he's a very good fighter.
Tell him, ask him if he'll talk about the middleweight tournament that's coming up this year in the Prime, and is he looking forward to to this middleweight tournament again to prove all over again that he's the best middleweight in the world?
Yes, for sure. I want to prove that I'm the best, but I don't know if this time I'm going to be in the Grand Prix.
Okay, does he want to participate in the tournament?
Você gostaria de participar? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to participate on the Grand Prix. Maybe some other fighter from our academy.
Winning so much like he has, and he hasn't lost a fight in 4 years, how does he keep the passion alive to keep training, hard? Because he hasn't lost in 4 years. So how does he keep the passion, and keep his hunger to keep training and to keep winning?
Well, fight is my work, and I cannot do it. I don't know how to do another thing. So fight is my work. That's why I'm just doing my best.
Very, very. Wait.
The best guy. 28, 5'11", 203 pounds, undefeated, 18-0-1-1 in Pride Fighting Championships, and there is the trademark stare down from Vanderlei Silva. And as we watch Hunt and Silva stare each other down, it is our extreme pleasure to welcome to the broadcast the UFC light heavyweight champion, Randy the Natural Couture. Randy, welcome, and my friend, I know you know Wanderlei Silva very well. What do you make of this situation here tonight? It was supposed to be Kazushi Sakuraba, but instead he is taking on a much bigger fighter in Mark Hunt.
Right, that's true, and a much bigger striker, and I think in some ways maybe a better striker than Wanderlei. So we're going to see what kind of ground skills Wanderlei can pull out if he can get a takedown and put this on the ground. I'm not sure he wants to stand up with a guy that big.
Yeah, and that hot of a head also. I mean, the guy's pretty much impossible to knock out. You're Coco kicking full in the head, it was an 8 count.
It's going to be very interesting. He's shaking up here.
Silva was quoted as saying he would be willing to go toe-to-toe with the kickboxing great in Hunt. What would be your strategy, Randy, in a situation like this?
This is the fastest double leg you ever saw in your life.
I thought the fastest guy who can run so
Silva is outweighed by some 70 pounds. Again, last-minute substitution. Missing with the 1-2 combination with Silva.
Wow, this is going to be something. There's no way this fight could go to the wall.
There's a shot attempt and a takedown by Wanderlei.
This is good.
Good strategy as implored by Randy Couture, and here you have it on the ground, Randy.
Let's see what he's got. This is interesting. We don't see him spend much time here. He generally finishes his fight with standing position, punch, Muay Thai punch, and knees. And obviously with a guy that's that big, I don't know if that's going to be there.
Useless shit! Die, you fucking coconut scum! Fuck! Like I always say, create some distance and go for the strikes.
Going for the full mount.
In the half guard right now of Mark Hunt, and for Mark Hunt, again, being from a kickboxing background, has been training in MMA, but now missing with a
big stop. He's doing a good job of getting back to his feet. And taking this fight on short notice, I wonder what the gas tank is like for him.
Yeah, it's going to be less, of course, on Wanderlei Silva. But 70 pounds weight difference also is going to make him more tired. That's the tired of Wanderlei Silva.
But you have to credit someone like Mark Hunt to come in at the last minute, knowing what's at stake. It's really a win-win situation for Hunt either way, isn't it, guys? Because here he is, the biggest event of the year for Pride. And he knocks Silva down with that left hand. Silva
Whoa.
And he just grazed him with that and still knocked him down.
Yeah, you have to respect striking a blow.
Oh, big uppercut. You know, becoming takedown by Wanderlei. Beautiful job pulling those legs out. There's a bit of head stomp. Socket kick missing.
Man, we are seeing a battle, my friends. And this is what the fans wanted to see.
Why not? This is fine. You got a stump on this?
Wow. There's nothing more than to stomp a mud hole in you.
Missing with the wild right was Mark Hunt. And you guys talked about the fact that Wanderlei closes the gap.
Nice.
Sent Hunt to the ropes.
The right hand by Mark Hunt.
Hunt has never been knocked out, Randy.
You can see why. Look at that training.
The fans now chant Silva.
Oh, wow. Wanderlei willing to stand and trade. That's amazing.
I'm so surprised that he took this fight.
Look, nice shot by Wanderlei. Changes off.
Side control. So it's interesting, Randy and Boss, that he's doing what you guys said he should, and you're not surprised. So a guy, pound for pound, and Randy, you're right up there as well, one of the toughest fighters on the planet. Silva's doing what he needs to do against a guy like Hunt.
He is. He needs to put this fight on the ground where he has an advantage. This is not Mark Hunt's game, being on his back, being on the ground. It's not where he wants to be.
So having said that, then, Boss, what does Mark Hunt have to do against a guy like Silva from this vantage point right now?
From now, he needs to know how to escape the situation.
Well, again,
yeah,
having said that, what can he do from here?
Okay, stick your left arm underneath and then buck up and explode yourself out of the back door. That's a way to try. We saw Satorio do it today.
Yeah, you see a right underhook with that right arm, and then start to circle towards that underhook and try to get some elevation, get back to his feet.
There you go.
The problem is every time he does it, he risks getting kicked in the head.
True. Here we go. It's going to be over.
Relax there.
It's going to be over.
That's it.
we saw this against Yoshida. Unbelievable escape there by Mark Hunt.
But you know what? I saw Vanderlei Silva armbarring Sakuraba, so I really think that this is going to come up now too. But
beautiful escape by Hunt. Now, is this where the weight advantage, the extreme weight advantage, comes into play for Hunt in a position like this, Randy?
I'll tell you, having just trained with Ruan Gardner for a couple of weeks, when you get a guy that big on top of you, it is very hard to get out from underneath him.
Yeah. Let alone breathing. But you know what? Mark Hunt has great feeling for mixed martial arts, like we saw in his fight against Yoshida. So I think that if Vanderlei is going to try an armbar attempt, he might escape and go to the sideline.
We just saw up there from that key lock, I mean, a sublime escape. And let's see what Silva can do now from the guard.
Somebody's bleeding. I'm seeing a little blood on Vanderlei's chest that might be coming from Mark Hunt.
Silva striking from the bottom. What do you think of Hunt's performance thus far, Randy? Again, having taken this fight on 3 days' notice.
Triangle attack, but Hunt's not having it. And Mark Hunt's showing a lot of natural ability for MMA here. He's a great natural athlete. And, you know, look at those shots. Oh, big up kicks by Vanderlei.
And now Hunt's taking the page from Silva's playbook. Going for the stuff.
Oh, my gosh. The atomic butt drop.
That's it, right in the The atomic butt drop. You heard it from Randy, the natural couture.
275 pounds.
You will make note of that, Randy, and add it to the dictionary of MMA. The atomic butt drop. I think you have to add it to the big books of combat, the next edition there, Bob.
I will be good. No, you know, actually, it was not enough, so I'm not going to do it.
Vanderlei back on top now, and see if Mark can scramble and find a way back to his feet. I'll tell you what, he's aggressive. You gotta like that.
Yep.
Vanderlei getting a breather now after having 270 pounds on top of him for a couple of minutes there.
If Mark Hunt had more experience in MMA, boss, and Randy, right now, is there any opportunity, again, we're talking about Vanderlei Silva, but is there any opportunity or any opening you see right now, watching from this point where he might be able to exploit?
I think the biggest thing is he's kind of catching his breath, but he's got his feet closed and he's locking himself into that bottom position, essentially. And really, I don't think that's where he wants to spend his time.
No, and where...
there you go, right on the side. On the other side, you go to sideline and start, or stand up and start stomping his head in again.
And we saw some vicious elbows delivered there to the body by Silva.
Mark kind of using the Yoshida wrist lock there, tying up Vanderlei's hands so he can't do a lot of damage.
The overhooks there now by Hunt, just again trying to neutralize the strikes from the top by Silva.
Nice elbows.
Yes, really utilizing those elbow attacks.
Those are great. He's throwing a lot of them.
So what do you guys think has the upper hand at this stage after everything we've seen in what has been a very exciting opening round?
Maybe that's my wrestling background coming out here, but I think with the takedowns, Vanderlei is winning this first round.
And how about you, boss?
Yeah, you know what? I think so too, but I think Hunt does do very well from the bottom also. Here we got to see, but you know what?
Oh, I am going to say, now back up. I'm happy I'm not a judge. That's right. Yeah. Very close. Very close.
Fans are happy that they are back on their feet. This Mark Hunt has an incredible heart and fighting spirit. Vanderlei Silva, you know, well documented. Undefeated in pride, the world pride middleweight champion. We have the UFC light heavyweight champion ringside. And Randy Couture, now it's Silva trying to unload with the lefts and rights. And again, he will. And there's Silva.
I think he saw something. He thought he hurt Vanderlei there.
Yeah,
I thought it was more of a slip.
But it was a slip as well.
But we have seen Vanderlei get rocked in more situations with not such a hard punch. The thing is, he recovers like unbelievable.
Exactly. Coming off probably one of the most exciting MMA fights of the past year at High Octane against Quinton Jackson. We saw him get tagged and recover instantly.
Yep. 1 minute left.
A great first round. You see Mark Hunt slow down a little bit here.
Yep. So I'm already breathing heavy. on his feet, but still, he went for it.
Yeah, and at 275 pounds, you're going to expect him to tire a little quicker than the 203-pound Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah, and also take it on 3 days' notice.
Exactly. And recovering from a right ankle injury. I mean, this guy is proving why the best fighters in the world are indeed in Pride Fighting Championships.
A small contour cut over the right eye of Mark Hunt here.
Yep, he's painting a little drawing on Vanderlei's chest here. I still try to figure out what it is. Okay, back. Not effective.
Now this is not the elbows.
So now that the guard is open, should we just kind of pull out the shoulder? Bell goes, and my goodness, they are battered, they are bruised, but they are both standing and going to their respective quarters. Randy Couture, my friend, what do you think?
I still think the round went to Vanderlei, but very, very close and very exciting round at that. A lot of action back and forth. It was very nice.
How about you, El Wapo?
Yeah, for me, it's also very close. I couldn't say right now who won the first round. What I do win is that Mark Hunt is running out of gas, it looks like. And the Pride scores. Whoever finishes the strongest is going to be the winner. So I see right now that it's going to be very good for Vanderlei Silva.
Whoa. Take us to the replay here, Randy and Buss.
Both guys throwing some big heat. They're both lucky neither of those punches landed.
Whoa, look at this. Crank, that was his forearm. That was a forearm hook.
Bounced him right off the mat. There's the key lock attempt and almost the mount of Vanderlei.
That's crazy. You know, the problem with that is when they turn, that means that they didn't push the hand underneath the same line as your shoulder.
Did you see that right hand?
That was a dandy. There's the big atomic butt drop.
Oh, that is unbelievable. The Pratt blood.
Oh my.
The beautiful Pratt
Another
blood.
angle of the atomic butt drop.
The atomic butt drop.
It looks like bombs in Las Vegas with everybody in the pool, and I make bombs. This is the best.
You know, we were talking about bombs away before this fight, but I was thinking more with the fist, you guys, not with the...
Yeah.
Look at Mark Hunt. It looks like he totally recouped.
Standing up and recovered. He looks good.
All right, we're about to embark on the second round. Randy, what do you make of Shockwave so far? A record crowd of over 48,000 here at the Saitama Super Arena in Japan. I know you've been to Japan a few times. Dan Henderson, victorious tonight. Your thoughts on Shockwave so far?
Oh man, that opening ceremony gave me goosebumps. That was awesome. And then the fights have been terrific as well. I was very impressed with that last fight in the lightweight division. Goni was
unreal.
terrific.
But Pulver was unbelievable too.
Yeah.
Those hands, man, they were flying. That was like
Speaking of flying hands, here we go, you guys. Silva and Hunt ready to do it again in round number 2.
oh, yeah.
Still hurting, I think.
Yep.
Still had the wherewithal to truck the armbar.
It was a big uppercut he walked into.
He is hurt, you guys. I think Vanderlei Silva is wanting to shake out the cobwebs. But look at this, the face of a champion. And Randy, when you see what we are seeing here right now, and I know Vanderlei showed up in the octagon, and you are here right now, what are your thoughts? Some days, somehow, meeting Vanderlei Silva.
Well, I mean, this is one of the best guys in MMA today, and that's why it would be an honor for me to be able to compete against him. He is an awesome fighter. The aggressiveness and his technique, and he showed some well-roundedness here tonight that I wouldn't have assumed he had.
Yep. And you know, of course, we can't get into much detail, but what do you think has to happen for that to take place, or can you even talk about it, right?
Man, it's really hard to say. You know, I know both the athletes have expressed interest in seeing that fight. I think it would be a huge fight for the sport to finally bridge that gap between the two organizations and see an undisputed type of a title. And that would be great.
Sorry to cut you off, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He just stands up. He says,
Let's go again. See if we can get past my hands again, Ryan.
Now Silva seems to have recovered, although it still looks like his eyes are glazed. He's in the corner. Mark Hunt is just a machine.
Get out of the corner.
Oh. Silva turns him around.
Mark content to catch his breath here a little bit, I think. Nice takedown by Vanderlei.
Into the corner.
Wow. This will be it. He plays his card right now. Cards. Hopefully he has more. Then he can't let us get up.
I'm thinking he has a whole hand, but that's not just one.
The whole pack. He's got 52 cards or something.
Now Silva, but then the mount working it with the strikes. He has the arm. Well, he pulls it out there now because, as you said before, boss, at the position it is in, and against a guy so much bigger, all you roll him over.
No, they're both recouping right now.
Do you think that Vanderlei Silva right now, from the mount, like you say, recuperating, he's still trying to shake out the cobwebs?
Oh, he's definitely recovering. Both guys have taken this position as a chance to recover here.
2 minutes left in the round. Whoa, look at it.
He's going to be a big man in position.
He's going to be a major player in the next martial arts.
Hey, you guys, thank you. Randy, taking the final 3 days notice. Regardless of the outcome of this fight, Mark Hunt's stock has just risen exponentially in mixed martial arts.
Big time. He's had a great showing here no matter what happens.
Wow. I think Vanderlei just writes this round out, and then round number 3 he will go again.
I think that would be very, very wise of his part, you guys. You're right.
Yeah, I would stand up.
Randy, if you were in Mark Hunt's corner now, knowing what's transpired thus far, knowing that, again, one of the greatest MMA fighters in the world is within your grasp right now, what would you be doing going into the 3rd round, knowing that this round is almost over? What would you be telling Mark Hunt?
I think Mark Hunt's doing the right thing. I mean, he's settling in and putting the pressure on Vanderlei, kind of getting him in the corner there, and then daring Vanderlei basically to get past his hands to try and take him down. And you can see it's not an easy task. He's paid the price.
Look at this, look at this. There's a reversal again. I've never seen him alive. Did you see it? Damn. I've never seen that in my life. He just reversed horsepower.
And you know what's funny, Mark Hunt? When you talk to him away from the ring, he's one of the most self-effacing individuals you will ever meet. He's almost very timid, very almost shy. He's very quiet. He almost thinks like, I'm not that great. I'm not a very good fighter. And then, guys, this is what you see in the ring. I mean, unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, it's going to be the end of this round. This is going to be an exciting round number 3.
Yes, coming down to round number 3.
He was a former K1 Grand Prix champion, but he came to Pride Fighting Championships because he knows in Pride Fighting Championships, this is where the best fighters in the world are watching.
I think it is.
Oh, shit.
Maybe decision.
Fatigued, but he should be
Vanderlei
smart.
Silva!
Tremendous fight here tonight. Wow, Mark Hunt, did he surprise?
Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt puts it in split
Fuck your dicks! Fuck you! Fuck you! God, you fucking lost! You lost, you shit-ass cunt! You were dead! You were fucked! You retard! Scum! Fucking bum! Loser! Cheater! 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 You fucking cheated! You fucking cheated! Fuck! Next.
Hey, Keenan saw some.
Those are significant. Those were concussions.
Yeah.
Those were, real KOs. Out cold, stretched.
Yep.
And the
I've got to put it by 2. I've got to put it by 2, so put that in. Want to take some?
Times.
Vanderlei has never been a real technical striker. He kind of wings his punches, comes in wild and flailing. Very effective, but just not the very nice leg kick.
Well, remember it was the leg kicks that chopped down Rampage in his title fight against
But I'm saying like I don't.
Sure,
Wait for
Vanderlei remembers that as well.
And Vanderlei has been training on a daily basis at Extreme Couture with Forrest Griffin.
Salvation. No donation. To salvation.
Came in quickly.
Kalima.
Vanderlei's fighting a home for that leg kick, right?
Non-title
No, I
fight.
didn't have any fucking into that cunt. I wanted to keep it, but I had a guilty conscience, so I'll just give it back.
Yeah.
Where is it?
16.
Because, reason is a different domain, and I think anything which is unreasonable, ultimately unreasonable, is just patently absurd. That's why I don't feel great affinity with most of the marching hordes of the New Age, because, the fact of the matter is they don't possess any razors for separating the nuts from the berries. But nevertheless, our intellectual choices are not between the channelers of Lazarus and the American scientific establishment. There's a vast set of possibilities in between there and beyond those holes of discourse that can be worked out. Every society that's always existed,
What the fuck, asshole?
had the built-in assumption that they only needed to find out 5% more about reality, and then it would all fall into place, and that they had the right tools for doing that. And but we look back then with this great sense of superiority on the naivete of the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Greeks, the Maya, the 17th century English, everybody. We look back on their naivete. But in fact, our own cultural enterprise is obviously fraught with a peculiar illogic and childishness and naivete. I mean, we're a culture that, robs our children to create a potlatch culture in the present. And this would look fairly pathological from any cultural perspective outside our own. The thing, I mean, this is a segue, but it makes sense. The thing that I think psychedelics do that addresses this problem and many, many problems or choke points in our ideological effort to understand what's going on is the contribution that they make is that they dissolve boundaries. And culture, I mean, the word virtual reality was used as we went around the circle. Culture is the sanctioned virtual reality. And it is put in place by the machinery of local language, you see. And so then you're born into this circumstance, and you're told, you are a male child, you are a citizen, you are a citizen of the United States, you are a Christian, you are a Jew, you will go to college, you will do this. And you never question. It's called the social contract. It hasn't gone unnoticed by Western philosophers. It's gone unnoticed by those of us who are its foremost victims. They try to tell you that you're in a social contract. But when you ask to see your signature on the document, they tell you that you were born into this contract. Well, what the hell kind of contract is that? It means that you were born into a kind of enslavement to a linguistically empowered paradigm of virtual reality within which you will walk around your entire life, congratulating yourself on its accomplishments and ignoring its contradictions and weaknesses. So what psychedelics do, and why they are in all times and all places such social dynamite, is they dissolve the cultural machinery. Doesn't matter. You know, head-shrinking Amazon native, Hasidic Jew, Chinese merchant in Singapore, whoever it is, the psychedelic dissolves their cultural construct and puts them in touch with the fact of being in organism. Being in organism is like what you get when you take off your real clothing. Not this clothing, but the clothing of language, programming, and assumption. Then you find yourself within the context of organism, outside the context of culture. And for the reason this is not a mass movement is many people hear that and they say, I know what that is. That's called being nuts. I don't want that. That sounds absolutely terrifying. Well, these are people for whom that cultural machinery is necessary armoring in an almost Reichian sense. Necessary armoring. They cannot face the world without culture because they are in fact defined by culture. Now, who are these people? These are the people, and we each to some degree imbibe in this category. These are the people whose values are set by the engines of commerce and propaganda. These are the people who dress as they are told to dress, spend as they are told to spend, believe as they are told to believe. But within every human being, there is a kind of, at least the possibility of a revulsion against this kind of anesthesia of uniqueness. Because that's what it is. You can put your uniqueness to sleep. And then, you know, you dress Gucci and you invest with these people and you drive this car and you know you're correct. Because your accountants, your managers, your agents, your public, whoever, your husband, your lover, is telling you that you're correct. Definition from without means being defined by the cultural machinery. Cultures other than our own have somehow always known, perhaps because nature is such a huge force outside the Western industrial democracies, people have always known that this was a fiction, that the world of cultural values is a necessary illusion, if you will. And so they create a class of people called shamans, or seers, or magicians, or trans-ecstatics, or what have you. And these people are deputized by the cultural machinery to go beyond it. To go beyond it and to return with truth. Not culturally sanctioned truth, but just truth, the felt experience of being in organism that I'm talking about. And by this process, cultures conduct their evolution, if you're an evolutionary thinker, or their random walk through time, if you're more of a phenomenologist. But whatever they're doing, we're not doing that. Because the mechanisms that we have used to close off access to the beyond culture dimension have in our hands grown so strong that we have, in a sense, succeeded to the point where we've put ourselves out of business. And the people to blame for this are these wily Greeks. Because while everybody else was carving horned masks and painting themselves with cross-hatching and stuff like that, The Greeks got the idea, we'll do it differently. We will portray the surface of the naked human body in marble. What this means is that the eye rises to the surface of reality and looks around for the first time from the point of view that we would call naive realism. But what a cultural journey it took to reach naive realism, because you had to sever yourself endlessly from the intuition of a symbolic, magical, spirit-haunted universe. And the Greeks, through a series of cultural accidents, and I would say mistakes, ultimately, achieved this. And they had then an alphabet, a phonetic alphabet, which empowered a further severing of linguistic intentionality from the essence of the object intended. Because you see, a phonetic alphabet symbolizes sound. It doesn't symbolize the way something looks or its thinghood. It just symbolizes sound. And the phonetic alphabet then issued into a series of cultural styles, science, rationalism, mathematical analysis of phenomenon. I mean, this was something absolutely unheard of, and is the unique contribution of the Western mind, that, you know, people noticed that you could take a gut string and shorten it by half, and the tone would shift 1 octave, and stuff like that. And they got the idea of numerical analysis, which opened up the path into culture to the present world. Well, each of these steps into realism, and remember I said we would call it naive realism, now that word takes on a different meaning from the context of the 20th century. It was naive. It was horribly naive. In fact, we were led down the primrose path by such simplistic notions, because what was suppressed was the invisible, messy world of the spirit and the human unconscious. This is the great tension that illuminates Greek civilization. You know, on one, I mean, take Plato as an example, because here in one thinker, these distinct strains of thought, these antithetical strains of thought are perfectly present. You have, you know, an overarching realism, a drive to categorize and to arrange in rational relationships, and you have a thoroughgoing mysticism with roots back into the Minoan religion of Crete and back into Egypt and Africa. I mean, it's really extraordinary. And that was the last moment in the Western cultural enterprise when these things were in balance. And they were not in balance in any one particular person. If you lived in that world, you probably had to pick and choose. And, you know, the skeptics were sneering at the Gnostics, who were saying secret knowledge came from an unspeakable place beyond the machinery of cosmic fate. And the skeptics just thought, you know, baloney, what kind of talk is that? Now, we live in the consequences of this naive realism. Because like all forms of innocence, if allowed to grow beyond the proper bounds, it becomes festering, it becomes decadent, it becomes not innocence but idiocy. It turns on itself. And this is, I think, the kind of world that we're living in. Now, parallel to this cultural adventure of several thousand years, the rainforest peoples of the warm tropics of the world kept intact the high Paleolithic style of cultural relativism mitigated by natural magic.
What?
And what did
Never
natural
mind, I got
magic
your
mean?
fucking
It meant
headphones,
these
asshole.
boundary-dissolving experiences.
I never want to repeat myself, man. You know that.
It isn't simply.
I fucking hate
I don't want
repeating
to
myself.
make it
I will
sound
not be like my fucking dad. It's so
It isn't
sensitive.
simply the
So
culture
sensitive.
rules of
Fucking
structure
trying, man.
and psychedelic
God!
structure, and then conduct you into some shimmering existential realm of a transcultural being. It isn't that. It's that in that shimmering transcultural realm of being, you discover new modalities, new rules. There's something there when you dissolve all the boundaries that you can. And the paradox of what is there from the point of view of the legacy of rationalism is what is there is an immense love and affection and intentionality waiting to engulf suffering mankind or the individual. This is what I call the mind behind nature, what people call Gaia, the mind of the planet, the organized intellect that somehow is the mothering force that encloses the whole of planetary life. This is a real thing. And I would never have thought so had I not had experiences which forced me to consider this. I think without the experiences, that rap comes off as horribly namby-pamby. You know, I mean, it's just, oh my God, not another one of these Gaia people, you know. But, in fact, this is a fact of reality, which anyone who has the courage to make the proper investigations can satisfy themselves is a real object of experience. You see, I'm 45. I grew up through the 50s, and I can remember these movies where the white people get captured by the cannibals and put in the pot to be boiled, and there was always a witch doctor, right? Well, this guy just epitomized the most nightmarish forces of unbridled primitivism and ignorance imaginable. Now, this has become, or is in the act of becoming, I hope, the guiding paradigm of the culture. Because what the shaman is the person who is still, and it's men and women, the person who is still in touch with this organic intelligence that lies behind nature. Now, the puzzle behind all of this, I really don't think that there would be much of a problem if what we were dealing with was a planet with teeming oceans, teeming jungles, climaxed forests in the temperate and tropical zone, Arctic tundra, so forth and so on. The clue that something weird is going on this planet is ourselves. Obviously. I mean, we are like a fart at the opera. Everything else makes sense. We don't make sense. And the speed with which the human type emerged from the proto-hominids is unparalleled in the evolutionary history of life. Edmund O. Wilson called the doubling of the human brain in size in under 3 million years the most rapid doubling of organ size in a major animal in the entire history of life on this planet, us. There's something weird about human beings, and so much of the explanatory machinery of culture is designed to make it go away, you see. even something as respectable and expressive of liberal values as Darwinism is in fact an effort to explain how it's all okay. It's natural. Don't worry. It's natural. You just get mutation and you have natural selection and you have traits and these traits extend themselves. But it's a great step, you know, to Milton, to the space shuttle, to an integrated global economy. I mean, are these the products of animal existence? The Darwinist says yes. And we tend to huddle under his umbrella because, you know, these shit-slinging fundamentalists seem to be the only other people out there. But obviously, when you're impaled on the horns of that kind of a dilemma, there needs to be a breakthrough to a third, fourth, or fifth possibility. And what I will argue for this weekend is that something very, very peculiar adheres to the adventure of being human, and that it is not all business as usual. We are not simply an advanced chimpanzee. Neither are we the sons and daughters of the Lord God Almighty. I mean, that also seems to me a stretch and to raise certain problems not easily swept under the rug. There has to be a third possibility. And I think that when we start, as we will tomorrow, talking about the way psychedelics synergize and stabilize certain abilities within a hominid population, and the way in which then other cultural reinforcements can be built upon that, you will see at least part of the story has to do with the way in which, by being forced toward an omnivorous diet, by virtue of having to leave the canopy homeland for a bipedal existence in the grasslands, we had to undergo a huge dietary change. And part of our strangeness has to do with the evolutionary changes worked upon us by virtue of our exposing ourselves to unusually high amounts of mutagens in foods as we expanded our diet, and drugs and foods come in here. The other part of the equation, which is much more speculative and which we'll talk about tomorrow night, has to do with the notion of an attractor, and of trying to look at humanness not as a mistake, a cosmic error, or as Heidegger said of man, he said we are flung into being. The idea always being that it doesn't make sense, that there's an arbitrariness to us. But I think that there's a way of analyzing process that will show that we are not only part of what is going on, an embedded part of what is going on, but that we actually represent the place where all the eggs are poured into one basket. And I'll just say a little bit about this tonight. When you look at the history of the universe, if you look with unbiased eyes, I think that what you will see is that the universe is a novelty-producing and conserving system of some sort. The early universe was so simple that when we now we're going with science here for a minute, we're asked to believe that it sprang from nothingness in a single moment, that its diameter was less than that of an electron. And then in a very short period of time, a number of very dramatic things happened, but they are all couched in terms of an expansion and cooling. From the moment the universe is born, it begins to cool. And as it cools, complexity magically crystallizes out. The original universe, there weren't even atoms because there was such high temperatures that atoms could not stabilize themselves into orbits around atomic nuclei. So there was what's called a plasma, just a soup of naked electrons. And then gradually, as the universe cooled, the simplest of all atomic systems was able to form, the hydrogen atom. And these hydrogen atoms were produced in staggering amounts, and they began to clump together. And this is tricky, but not our problem. This is a problem for science. They don't know why they clumped, because it should have all been smooth, right down to today. But it isn't. So in this clumping process, of course, great temperatures and pressures were created at the centers of these masses of hydrogen, and a novel process, therefore, could spring into existence, the process of fusion. And fusion of hydrogen in early stars cooked out heavier elements, iron, sulfur, and especially carbon. Well, after that, then you get all those molecular or atomic species, and then they can aggregate into molecular species. And then, because of the presence of 4-valent carbon, very complex molecules called polymers, which are chain molecules, can form. Some of them acquire the quality of being able to replicate. Some of them acquire the ability to enclose themselves in a membrane, and so forth and so on. And in short, the march is on toward you and I here this evening. But what's interesting to note is that each successive stage in this process happens more rapidly than the process which preceded it. So that the early universe, 10 billion years goes on, and it's all about this star formation cookout thing. And then, planetary formation. Then once you get, and then a billion, what we're seeing is an illusion, or that it doesn't matter. They're saying it is not a law of the universe that novelty be conserved, and that each new level of novelty proceed more quickly than the one which was its parent. And so by chopping it off like that, human history is denied any relevance in the natural order. It is not part of the natural order. And even though we think we're a secular society, our assumptions about history are straight out of Genesis. We do not think of history as a branch of biology, and which it obviously is. So what I believe is happening is an accelerating process of novelty conservation that has reached such a point now, at the close of the second millennium, that it is absurd to try to propagate the human future by fantasy centuries into the There is no future, because the rate of acceleration is so close to approaching infinity that no possible future can be imagined. Now, people talk about this, but they never draw the implications. You've probably seen some show on television where they say, here's the curve of human energy release, and here's the Stone Age, and here's the 16th century, and here's the 20th century, and it's headed for infinity. Okay, next slide. Here's the curve of human speed. In the 1750, people could go as fast as a horse could gallop. In 1820, the steam engine, and then the 20th, and then it goes to infinity. And they say, okay, here's the human population curve. In the year 1000, there were 400 million people on Earth. In the year 1850, and so forth, and it goes to infinity. So they don't believe it. They don't believe that the rational extrapolation of the trends visibly beheld in the present preclude the possibility of any imaginable future. Or at least I don't believe so. I believe that we're actually in the grip of a process that cannot be halted or accelerated, but which is now in a process of tightening its gyres, as William Butler Yeats said, that what we call the chaos of 20th century history is in fact the speeding up of this temporal process to the point where it is now visible within a single human lifetime. I mean, we're like mayflies or something, you know, we're born one day and we die the next. So only the most incredibly accelerated kinds of change make any impression upon us whatsoever. I mean, mostly we say nothing happens. But in fact, you know, in the 20th century, it's incredible. In the last 12 months, there has been more change compressed into time than in the previous 20 years. And those 20 years had more change in them than the previous 100 years. And that 100 years had more change in it than the previous 1,000 years. And that 1,000 years had more change in it than the previous 10,000 years. But science tells us this is meaningless. This is not a real, legitimate phenomenon that you're talking about. You're just lining up facts to make it appear as though there is an attractor, to make it appear as though the human historical enterprise is about to run itself into a stone wall or off a cliff or into another dimension. And this is really the question, I think, because psychedelics are, or were once described as consciousness-expanding drugs, phenomenological description, consciousness-expanding drugs. Well, if that's true, or if there's even the slimmest possibility that that's true, then we have to avail ourselves of these things, because consciousness is precisely what we are starving for the lack of. And history is no longer rationally apprehendable by the systems which created it. I mean, everybody who's running around gloating over what happened to Marxist-Leninism should understand that Marxist-Leninism is traceable right back to the social contract theory of Rousseau, and that Western liberalism is traceable to the same root. And the crisis of Marxism is they just died first, that's all. But all these ideologies are on the brink of a coronary thrombosis, and we're going to have to catch the falling bodies when it hits. I mean, do you think that mercantile capitalism, which extracts the environmental reserves at an ever-accelerating rate, has any history, any future whatsoever on this planet? I mean, they're just looting the last few $100 billion worth of stuff before they announce that everybody's going to have to go on a diet that will drop your jaw. So we've come to the end of our road.
Fuck
so
you
what
all.
do we have to do about it? Well, what we have to do is we have to look
Shut
back
up.
in time
Fucking
and find
retards.
cultural models.
Retard!
And, you know, many of you have been here before have heard me talk about what I call the archaic revival, an effort to jerk 20th century culture 180 degrees systems of the high Paleolithic, because that's the last moment that intelligence, language, religion coexisted with nature on this planet in a less than fatal arrangement. You know, from the moment that agriculture was invented, the die was cast. Because first of all, agriculture is a strategy for dumping a huge database, the database of the hunter-gatherer, and replacing it with a database that is important for only 5 or 6 species of plant. You then give up nomadism, which begins to concentrate your impact on the land into one place. You then plant these crops, and you have such success producing food that now moving anywhere is unthinkable. Plus, the big project after the Fall Harvest Festival is now we have to build a wall to keep the starving people from stealing our surplus. So immediately there's us successful people and those people who weren't successful and who have different cultural values and who didn't produce a food surplus. So, we decided we're going to sharpen sticks and kill all of them. So then you have warfare, thicker walls, retreat into cities, standing armies, defensive territory, class structure emerge, the notion of wealth as an abstraction, because wealth in a Aboriginal society is a sharpened stone, not your portfolio with your investments neatly listed, you see. So this is, just a pass over these themes. I know a lot of people came hundreds of miles and drove a long way today, and I tend to whip you with this stuff. But the idea is that the psychedelics are more than the best fun there is, which they are. More than a tool for exploring your own psyche and straightening which they are. They are, in fact, the key to understanding the pathology that culture has become and the way out. I mean, there has to be a way out, and it really is this archaic revival. I mean, and if you're resisting it, think of it this way. If we don't organize the archaic revival, it will be handed to us on a platter in the form of failed agriculture because the ozone hole is screwed up, infrastructures falling apart, financial systems falling apart, the rise of fundamentalist religion. In other words, we are going to have a return to a previous historical model, and it can either be managed humanely through an honoring of the feminine, an honoring of the earth, a return to the techniques of ecstasy that characterized the high Paleolithic shamanism, or it can be handed to us in the form of shortages, famines, disease, internecine warfare, nuclear dumping, so forth and so on. But one way or another, this whole edifice put in place by the Renaissance and jacked up to high speed by the European Enlightenment and delivered into the
how much is it?
I don't know, about a 10, over a 10.
20, and this is how much,
the rise of global technology. I mean, remember, each of us has never seen these changes within a lifetime. And yet, within the past 200 years, the world has gotten
how much is this? How much is that? This much is $10, $5, $20.
To extract natural resources, to mine Siberia and the mountains of Chile and the interior of the Amazon and Borneo, and these unimaginable technological infrastructures have been put in place to sustain a dying patient. And that's what we have here. We're on respirators. We're getting intravenous feeding. They are monitoring everything because it's not healthy. It can only be sustained through the most extraordinary and heroic means. We're taking bone marrow from the children of the future in order to keep a corpse alive. And people don't find their voice. They don't seem to know how to call a halt. You know, I mean, I listen to the politicos who aspire to leadership, and, you know, they have the same problem with the vision thing as the maximum leader of the present moment. So these are the things that we'll talk about this weekend, and you must steer me, or I will harangue. And it's not a pretty sight, I must tell you. legal ramifications to this plant collection in Hawaii?
I forgot what you said, sorry.
Well,
sorry if you have to repeat
this is sort of a touchy area. There's
so
nothing that is out and out,
sorry, James,
drag them away, kicking and screaming, illegal, like coca or something like that.
I gave you some weed.
It may potentially be some kind of irritant to them. You would have to be a field botanist of great skill and sophistication to find anything that was a problem. There are plants that have never been, that are in some nebulous dimension illegal, but there's never been a test case of it, you see. Because one of the things that would be a rational reformation of the drug laws, and would in fact follow the lead of English common law, is to distinguish between a plant and a drug. In fact, at one point I advocated what I called the Vegetable Drug Act, which would just be simply to state that plants are not drugs, and plants cannot be illegal. You can't make a portion of nature illegal. This is crazy thinking. One of the things that I talk about in my book that we've never talked about, a plant and a drug. It may potentially be some kind of irritant to them. You would have to be a field botanist of great skill and sophistication to find anything that was a problem. There are plants that have never been, that are in some nebulous dimension illegal, but there's never been a test case of it, you see. Because one of the things that would be a rational reformation of the drug laws, and would in fact follow the lead of English common law, is to distinguish between a plant and a drug. In fact, at one point I advocated what I called the Vegetable Drug Act, which would just be simply to state that plants are not drugs, and plants cannot be illegal. You can't make a portion of nature illegal. This is crazy thinking. One of the things that I talk about in my book that we've never talked about much in these weekends because the groups don't seem to have much interest in it, but I found it sort of fascinating, was, for example, in the case of opium, most of us grow up with a completely demonized vision of the morphine family. I mean, this is the lowest of the low, and if somebody gets mixed up in junk, it's just considered, you know, slow suicide and so forth. And it is certainly true that heroin addiction is fairly destructive and doesn't do your relationships any good and that sort of thing. But it was very interesting to me in the process of writing this book to discover that opium, which has been known and used by human beings for at least 4,000 years, possibly longer, nobody ever suggested that opium was addictive until the 17th century, when the English physician John Playfair noted for the first time that exposure to opium created a craving for more opium. It had been used for 3,000 years without anybody ever noticing that it was addicting. And one of the tendencies that this book traces fairly clearly is the tendency to refine and strengthen drugs until they become social problems. We don't seem to rest until we push them to the most virulent, most destructive form. A good example of this that you're all familiar with is coca and cocaine and crack, because coca is if you go into a coca-using area of the Amazon or the Andes, the villagers, the people you meet, they are very well aware of the cocaine problem in the United States and the DEA and all this. And the first thing they want to tell you is, coca is not a drug. It's a food. And Tim Plowman, God rest his soul, a good friend of many of us, who died a few years ago, a great field botanist, he did studies of the nutritional value of coca and discovered that, in fact, in a coca-using population, up to 30% of the vitamins and minerals in the diet are coming from coca. And it is not a social problem. It does not lead to antisocial behavior or child abandonment or violence or anything like that. It is, in fact, largely, it makes life possible in the jungle because it gives you the energy that you must have. The jungle is an extremely encroaching place. And if the only tool you have to hold back the jungle is a self-sharpened machete, in the absence of coca, you would toss in the towel after a couple of weeks of struggling with this. In the presence of coca, you can settle down to a lifetime. It's a short life. You'll be dead between 35 and 40. But a lifetime of struggling with the jungle. You see, one misconception that it's probably important to clear up that people have about the jungle is when they see the climaxed tropical rainforest, they assume that this tremendous richness of vegetation must signal a tremendous availability of food, fruits and things. This is not at all the case. It's very easy to starve to death in a tropical jungle. And the reason for this, especially an old tropical jungle like the Amazon, the reason for this is because evolutionary competition is so keen among species that there is no luxury to produce rich, juicy fruits loaded with sugars and stuff like that. I mean, often in the Amazon, people will show you what they're eating as a treat, something they found along the trail. And when you bear down on what it is, it's often a fruit or something like that that has just a millimeter thin film of slightly sweet pulp or something like that around it. There isn't it's not a place where it's easy to get a food supply together. So a drug like coca, which suppresses appetite, this is its second important consequence, is in great demand. And the suppression of appetite, the providing of energy, it's made for this very, very harsh environment. The other thing is there are other psychoactive compounds in coca, other so-called canes, and they mitigate the property of the cocaine. Western science got a hold of this and quickly turned it into cocaine, which is very hard on the major muscles of the heart, highly addictive, and a fairly pernicious drug, although it's the monkey doing it that you usually have to wonder about. And then, in our perverse way, we go to crack cocaine, which is an even more virulent form, more easily delivered. And the evolution of drug delivery systems is an interesting aspect of the whole drug problem. Hypodermic syringes were invented in the 19th century, just in time for the invention of morphine. And following on the heels of those two inventions were two great wars, the American Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War in Europe, happening at roughly the same time. Out of those two wars emerged the first population of hard drug addicts in Western culture. There had never been anything like that before. At the close of the Civil War, morphine addiction was called the soldier's disease because there had been so much indiscriminate use of morphine on the battlefields of the Civil War. I am answering your question about agriculture, but stick with me here. So then this is, to my mind, the partnership paradise of prehistory in which the feminine was honored, men and women existed in equilibrium, child caring was shared, men, because of the strong upper body and different physical characteristics, were assigned the hunting. And also because women had babies clinging to them all the time and were not so mobile. So there was an early division of labor. And I think, although I would not do this to the death, but it seems to me that women are probably the inventors of language. And for this, we can both thank them and, wonder about the consequences of it. Now, why would women be the inventors of language? It's because hunting is a fairly generalized concept where great emphasis is placed on stoic waiting and physical strength. You need to be able to keep your mouth shut for hours and hours at a time, sitting stock still, waiting, and then when the moment comes, just wail on whatever it is that's running by. The position of the... Well, the gatherer is an entirely different problem, and the women took the gathering. What gathering is all about is fine distinctions. You want to be able to say, when someone says to you, where did you find these wonderful roots? You want to be able to say, they're down near the sulfur spring, they grow in the ground underneath the plant with the small yellow flowers and the serrated leaf edge with the furry underneath. In other words, it's a tremendous problem of location linguistically. And if any of you are botanists, you know that until the invention of photography, botany created a whole special language for itself called taxonomic description.
Play some music, James. It's got alcohol and nicotine. I got all the stuff on it. All the different stuff. I told them about it and they all got one out and used it. Wow, that's right. They all bought them.
Hey, you shut
It's got alcohol in it. It's got alcohol.
And massive nicotine.
Yeah.
One hit, bang, nicotine, and wow, I'm drunk. Twice to 6 at a time, I actually got one hit, they called it at once. It's burning!
My disciple!
My disciple!
Here, master! Can you not hear the sound of my victory?
I hear little or nothing.
Perhaps I should turn it
on.
Back up.
After the conflict.
You only think so.
Because you haven't read between the lines.
That's something for your master
in my pocket.
proven yourself in a fight. Not even the herd of leprechauns can defend against my dancing finger style.
Woo! I can do this whole scene. I've memorized this. I don't know how much it hurts. It's pretty painful. Hey, buddy, this is a real bright light. Hold it right there. Hold it right there. Hey, I said hold it. Son of a bitch. Took my pants.
What day is it? The date's wrong.
12 May, Thursday. What year? Huh? Sweetie, sweet boy. Junior, sweet boy. Sweet boy. Little boy. I love him and he's my son. Good son. I love your boy. So cool, Melody robs the ball. Shotgun. He's got a handgun and a shotgun now. Nike shoes, jeans.
Is he a Terminator?
No, he's a human.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck's sakes. Why would you be scared of a policeman who's a fucking Terminator, you fucking retard? No, I haven't seen this ages. And logically, obviously not. Even if you've never seen him, by now you know he's not a fucking Terminator, man. Fucking child, fucking figure it out. Future war car is there. Boy.
Baby, here we are, standing face to face. Just the two of us, locked in your embrace. Now I got it bad, but you got something good. Won't you treat me good in every way, yeah? Are you ready? I can feel you shining. I will give to you the love you see more. So are you waiting for? I will give to you the love you see more. I will give to you the love you see more. I will give to you the love you see more.
You, James?
Yeah.
You say you want one?
Beer or cigarette?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please. Cool. Thank you, honey.
So you're not on them, enough anymore? Oh yeah, so they just do this in the fish, just oh, I had Jane. Yeah. So they, oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I'm not very good at thinking in the flight. I just feel that my body, my heart is pumping. Yep. There's no reason for me to get scared. Feeling like that. I feel it. Yeah. And I've done a little bit of research on it, and this is years and years ago when I was like 17 or something. Yep. And I was like, okay, it seems like I'm having this thing where anxiety disorder because I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack. Yep. Oh yeah. But I wasn't. Yep. It's just the fucking drugs, eh? No, back then it was just natural. Natural, yeah? You're just getting panic attacks. Yeah. Panic attacks, really bad ones, bro. Like, I think I was gonna die, like shit myself. Yeah. Oh shit. That looks cool, James. Did Dean take your car? Yeah. Oh yeah, so it's not back yet. Yeah, I was right about. Are all the tunes, eh? Good job, boy. Are you right, James? You remember that? That's good.
What's it supposed to be? Flying boy.
Yeah.
Superman.
We're gonna fucking gonna try it, you fucking asshole.
That's the you eat.
Oh.
That's my weed. That puff. Now, you see that weed that you got? I got some weed for us.
What shade are you?
Yeah, I got some weed for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, roll the joint. So when you're ready. Right. Pin perk. Perk.
You know, good boy, yeah. Hey boy, good boy.
Hey, sweet.
Hey, sweetie.
You want to go?
Come here, yo. Yeah. Yeah. Come by here, sweetie. Yes, sweetie. My sweetie boy. Oh, sweetie boy. Look what I got.
Who's that?
Hytham.
Hytham.
But I got him, motherfucker. I'll save that one. Cool picture eye.
Hey?
Cool picture eye.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Behold your savior.
Why did I fucking sin? I'm gonna do it. Bang, 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 bang. Maybe I got more. Behold your savior. Behold your savior. That's so funny. you, asshole. No.
Is that so? Sweetie Queen? Is that?
My girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
I'll let everybody know. Somebody has fucking thing, man. The best combo. This one first.
Good day.